Okay, today we're going to be looking at a new feature in Qlik Cloud called a Spatial Index. It's not a feature that is specific to Qlik Cloud. It's in a lot of other geo products like PostGIS and Oracle and other things. But basically, this is a feature that greatly enhances your ability to utilize maps in an efficient manner, especially when it comes to selections. And so what this is going to allow you to do is rather than going through a map, zooming in and individually selecting or using a lasso tool to select all of the points that are visible in the map and then confirming that selection. What you can now do is just zoom in and you will automatically select all of the points in the map that you zoom in on. So this is a super useful tool when it comes to being able to manage lots of points in a map. A map can now handle a lot of points in a map, especially when you're dealing with different zoom levels. So we're going to look at all of this and see how we can make it work for us. So the first thing we'll look at is our example application that we're going to use today. This is using a college calculator, just a simple application that has a bunch of college information in here, including a map that has all of these colleges mapped out onto a map of the United States, as these are primarily US universities. So what we'll do, just to show what the current way of selecting points on a map is, I'm using my trackpad to zoom in and then draw a very weird shape here around a couple of my points. And then I'll confirm that selection. And now in this table, I can see all of those points that I've selected. And if I wanted to, I could further select, I could further zoom in, draw some more around these points in order to select these all of these colleges. So that's currently how we can make selections in a map is zooming in and then selecting our points. But what we're going to do is use a spatial index table to make it so that all we have to do is zoom in on the map and then those points can be selected. All right, so I'm going to clear that selection and let's quickly preview what our table looks like currently. So this is our colleges table. It's just one table. So we have a list of all of our universities in the name field. We have an ID for each college as well. And then we have location as well as location full. So location full is what we are using in our map, right? So technically we aren't actually mapping the colleges, we're mapping the city that the college is in. So Los Angeles, Cambridge, Stanford, University Park, Berkeley, et cetera, et cetera. So since multiple colleges can be in one location, we not only have a college ID, but a location ID. Okay, so this is going to help us differentiate each individual and unique city. All right, so that's what we're using is the city names. And so this is the QVD that I'm using here, colleges QVD, and you can see I'm just using an auto number to generate my location ID. Okay, so I have already set up here a blank section for our GeoOperations, right? So I already have a Qlik GeoOperations connector here. If you don't already have one, you need to choose the space you want to create this in, right? So you hit create new, choose the space that you want it to be in, and then just look at the Qlik GeoOperations connector, and then you'll choose that and set it up from there. It's very straightforward. So in this case, I already have it set up, so I'm going to go ahead and select the select data button. And now we have all of the usual operations that you will already recognize, but we now have this new spatial index option. And you see a few interesting parameters here: grid size in degrees, grid width and height, rather grid width and height ratio, number of levels, and then the level factor. Okay. So the grid size is the essentially the bin size for the spatial index, and then you have the grid width and height ratio, and then the number of levels. So the number of like levels that you zoom in on in a map, that's what that number is, and then the level factor. So what you multiply all of the other variables by, as far as grid size and all that for each level. So it's a little confusing, it's a little convoluted, but essentially what we're looking at here is creating a grid that is going to store more or less behind the scenes all of our points into each grid, each cell in our grid. And so when we are zoomed in to a certain level in our map, Qlik is sort of behind the scenes, putting on a grid, looking at a grid in the map, and is using that grid to say, okay, what points are visible in the map? So that way, Qlik doesn't have to keep track of every single point in a map that is currently visible in the map. It only needs to know what grids or what cells of this grid are visible in the map. And so it may not seem like it's doing a whole lot there, but it's greatly improving the math or reducing rather the amount of math that Qlik has to do. And so to set this up, you can change those numbers. I'm going to keep them as is for now. And so, like I mentioned before, I have a loaded table as we saw that colleges QVD. So I'll go ahead and put in that colleges table that I have. And then for my key field, I already have one. Okay, and that's that location ID field that I pointed out. Okay. And so if you have like an XY coordinate, right, already, you could do a point, or if it's formatted as a lat long, you can use the point lat long. I'm going to use, excuse me, I'm going to use a named point. So named point would be a commonly identifiable name. So in this case, it's going to be city, comma, state, comma, country, right? And I want it as a point rather than a shape. Okay, so that is going to be location full. That's just the field that I've already created in my QVD that has, again, city, comma, state, comma, country. For example, Los Angeles, comma, California, comma, USA. All right, now I already know that my coordinate reference system is a 4326. So that your mileage may vary. Um, Probably best to do auto if you're not sure, but I know already that that's what mine is. And that's all the setup that you have to do. That's really all the setup that you have to do. So I'm going to go ahead and select all the fields that are going to be generated in this table. You can see there's fields for each level, right? And then it spits out a few of the existing fields. And basically, each of these new fields that are kicked out are going to be like a specific grid or a cell in the grid. And again, that's what Qlik is now going to look at in the spatial index. So let's go ahead and load it. And there we go. We notice we get 392 out of 400. That's probably related to my data. All right. And so now we come to our data model viewer. And here's our new spatial index table. So again, you see a different column for each zoom level, essentially. And you can see these are all coordinates. So these are all coordinates to this grid that Qlik is creating behind the scenes to understand what is being shown in the map at any given time. All right, and then it kicks out the point location and kind of reiterates those fields that we gave it before. So now let's put pen to paper. Let's make this actionable. I'm going to go into edit mode in my sheet. And now what I'm going to do is make sure to go to map settings. Okay. Now currently, and as is the default behavior, zoom behavior is set to auto zoom. So all that means is if I make a selection or a couple of selections and then confirm that selection, Qlik will auto zoom or the map will auto zoom to those selections, right? So now what I'm going to do is instead of auto zoom, I'm going to choose auto select visible. That's the new option that has been added here. And now from my list of spatial indexes, well, I only have one. So if you've created multiple, you'll see multiple here, but of course we just have the one. So we'll select that one. Should just be called spatial index by default. And that is mostly all the setup you need. The only other thing you have to do to make sure you're set up is just make sure you're using one of the location fields kicked back from the spatial index table. And so I'm going to go into, let me see here, my school point layer. I'm going to go into location. Right now it's on location full. That should be good, but if I want to just make sure, I'm going to use the location full that is returned by the spatial index table. So that might be a little overkill, but better safe than sorry. So we'll do that. So now what's going to happen is if I start to zoom in my map, you'll notice that this table has just narrowed to just these colleges here, or these cities, I should say. And then at the top, we can actually see Qlik has automatically selected these visible points within this zoom level. If I zoom in more, Qlik is selecting this the city here. All right. And now what am I looking at here up in spatial index level 3? So these are not cities. These are not IDs. These are cells in a grid. Okay, those are cells in a grid effectively. And so that's how Qlik is handling it behind the scenes. It's just splitting all of these points up into grids that Qlik more easily can crunch through to understand what is being shown in the map. And now if I zoom out, I'm including more points that are visible, but I'm not having to lasso and I'm not having to individually select my points in order to zoom in on them. And as a matter of fact, if I make those selections, Qlik is not going to automatically zoom in on them, we notice, right? So now all we need to do is, just control what zoom level we're at ourselves. But as long as we kind of get the hang of going from auto zoom to visible zoom and get the hang of moving the map around ourselves and not relying on auto zoom, then this becomes, again, a really, really powerful feature and one that, again, is going to allow you to have much better control of your map, as well as not have to do a lot of manual selection of the points in this map. Uh, the ability to zoom in and have it automatically select is going to make it possible to add a lot more data to these maps without them being laggy or uh, be bad for a bad experience for the end user due to some perceived slowness or anything like that, or not being able to draw all the points on a map at once. So anyways, that is a quick how-to of how to set up the spatial index table in Qlik Cloud, and then how to quickly apply it to a map and view the results, which again are being able to select points in a map just by zooming in and narrowing the map to only the points that you want to have selected. And so that's all we have here today. I hope this was helpful. Make sure to follow us on arcanalytics.co. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn, Arc Analytics, as well as our full Qlik community on school.com. That's skool.com. You can just search for Arc Analytics, Qlik, and you'll find us. Come find us there, and we'll post some more videos soon. Thanks, y'all.